Assalamu alaikum dear students. In this lecture we are going to study about the negative and passive transformation. So previously we were studying about syntax, that is basically the aspect of grammar. Traditionally we termed as grammar, but now in modern linguistics we termed as syntax. So the negative and passive transformation is the aspect of syntax. So let's begin. The lecture outline is we are going to study about the passive transformation, the active voice, the passive voice, and the negative transformation. So let's begin to see what the passive transformation is. The passive transformation. In English grammar, a sentence can have two types of voices, or we can say transformations. So you might have heard before in intermediate level or bachelor level that there are active voice and passive voice in English grammar. So this is actually we called as the active transformation, or the passive transformation of the voice means any sentence or any utterance that a person speaks. So a sentence can either be transformed into passive voice or either be transformed into in an active way. So our focus is on the passive transformation. So just take an overview that what is the active voice, or we can say the active transformation. It is the active voice or active transformation. It is the normal voice we use in our sentences, that is the object receives the action of the verb. So it is the normal voice, the normal transformation, the normal sentence structure which we have in the English grammar, that the subject is the doer, then we have the verb, the action, then we have the object. The object is the receiver of the action. So let's take an example. Aisha wrote a letter. So in this example, Aisha is a subject, the doer of the action. Wrote is a verb, that is actually an action of writing something. The letter is the object on which action is being done. So Aisha is the doer of the action, and the letter is the receiver of the action. So this is the active voice, or we can say the active transformation, or the active way of writing or speaking something, that the subject is actually doing the action and this object is actually receiving the action. The object is the receiver of the action and the subject is the doer of the action in the active voice. So this is all with the active voice. But in this lecture our focus is on the passive transformation, that how the active voice or the active way of writing something can be transformed into a passive way. So let's begin to see how a sentence is converted into a passive way. Passive voice or passive transformation. In this transformation, the subject receives the action of the verb. In active voice, the object is the receiver of the action, whereas in passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. So now in passive voice, the matter is totally opposite from the active voice. In active voice, what is actually the case? We have the subject. The subject is actually doing the action and the object is receiving the action. Whereas in the passive voice, the subject is actually receiving the action. The subject is actually the receiver of the action. So this is all about the emphasis, the focus, that in active voice the focus is on the subject, the doer of the action, whereas in passive voice the emphasis, the focus is on the object, the receiver of the action. So In active voice, the emphasis is on the subject, that is the doer of the action. In passive voice, the emphasis is on the object, that what action has been done actually. So this thing that in active voice the object is the receiver of the action, whereas in passive voice the subject is the receiver of the action, this is actually not taken in a literal sense, but that is just for understanding that the action is actually basically done by the subject in the passive voice as well, but we change the focus. In the active voice, the focus is on the doer, whereas in the passive voice, the focus of saying or writing something is on the receiver of the action, is on the action, that what action has actually placed. Let's take an example. Ali mailed the letter. So this is active voice. Ali is the subject. Mailed, the mailing, the process of mailing is the verb, the action, and the letter is the object. So the letter is actually which action has been done. Mailing action has been done to whom? With the letter. And who did this? Ali mailed the letter. Now when we transform into the passive voice, the sentence becomes like the letter was mailed by Ali. So the focus of this sentence is on the letter. The object comes at the place of the subject, and the subject goes to the place of the object. So now we are going to study that what is actually the process, the general process of passive transformation, that how generally we convert the active sentences to passive sentences. So the first step which we need to do is move the active sentences direct object into the sentences subject slot. So the direct object, the object comes at the place of the subject, and the subject goes to the place of the object. So Marilyn mailed the letter, or we can say Ali mailed the letter. So now the letter is the direct object, and what we are going to do, we are going to place the direct object on the place of the subject. Here the thing is to be noted that there may be many sentences in which there may be direct objects and indirect object together. So we need to take the which object we need to take at the place of the subject, that is the direct object. Only the direct object can come onto the place of the subject. So Marilyn or Ali mailed the letter. The letter is the object, and we have placed it to the subject slot. This is the first general step. Then the second one is place the active sentences subject into a phrase beginning with the preposition by. So what we have to do secondly, first we have to change the place of the direct object and the subject. Subject will come at the place of the direct object, and the direct object goes at the place of the subject. And what we need to do, we need to add a preposition by before the subject. The letter by Marilyn. The third step is add a form of the auxiliary verb be to the main verb and change the main verb's form. So we have to change the form of the main verb by adding an auxiliary verb before the main verb. So by which auxiliary verb we need to add, we have to see the tense of the main verb. If the main verb is in the present tense, then we have to place the auxiliary is or are. If the main verb is in the past tense, then we have to add the auxiliary like was. So Marilyn mailed the letter. Mailed, we see the verb, the tense of the sentence is the past. So what we need to add, what kind of auxiliary we need to add, that is was. So the letter was mailed by Marilyn. So 3 steps we generally do in the transformation from active to passive. That is, first we change the slots of the direct object and the subject, then we add a preposition by with the subject, and then we add an auxiliary with the main verb, keeping in mind that what tense is of the main verb. If the main verb is of the if the tense of the main verb is present, then we have to add the auxiliary before the main verb according to the present tense. If the main verb, the tense of the main verb is in the past, then we have to add the auxiliary before the main verb according to the past tense. If the tense of the main verb is in the future, so we have to add the auxiliary verb before the main verb that is in the future. So this is the general rule which we need to follow in the passive transformation. So let's see how the tense change according to the passive transformation. So the tense, when tense is simple present, so now this is going to be the fact that which type of verb we need to add in the sentence when changing from active to the passive voice, when we are transforming the sentences from active to passive voice. So when we have the simple present like take or takes is converted, when we convert it into the passive, it becomes is taken, are taken. Present continuous or present progressive, am taking, is taking, are taking becomes is being taken, are being taken. Then present perfect, has taken, have taken, has been taken, have been taken. So these are the some rules which you have to keep in your mind while changing, while transforming the active sentence into the passive one. The simple past took, like for example, took, was taken, were taken. Past continuous, was taking, were taking. This is in the active voice. So when we convert into the passive voice, it becomes was being taken, were being taken. Past perfect, had taken, had been taken. Simple future, will take, shall take, will be taken, shall be taken. Simple future, like I am going to take a cake. Cake is going to be taken by me. She is going to, when the simple future is in the will or shall form, will be taken, shall be taken. Or when the simple future is in, like we say, is going to, we have going to be. When we have a going to be form, then we have am going to take a cake, cake is going to be taken by me. So in future perfect, will have taken becomes will have been taken. So now we need to see that how the nouns in passive transformation changes. Like nouns, basically the pronouns, that how they are going to change. So I changes to by me. When I say I take mangoes, so the sentence changes that the mangoes are taken by me. We changes to by us. You changes to by you. he changes to by him, she changes to by her, it changes to by it, they changes to by them, and the last one is to ignore this. This is just go the they changes to by them. So just ignore that last word. Now, done with the passive transformation, now we are going to study about the negative transformation. That's how in the English grammar the sentences are changed into the negative ones. We speak normally the positive sentences, that I do this, they do, they do, I do, we do. So what are the rules of the negative transformation? How do we transform the positive sentences into the negative sentences? In English grammar, there are certain rules to make the sentence negative. In simple words, a negative sentence or negative transformation of a sentence states that something is not true or incorrect. So what is the general structure of the negative sentence? So the general structure of the negative sentence is the subject, then comes the auxiliary, then comes not, which is the sign of negation, then means negative, then comes the main verb, then comes the object. If we are not following this kind of sentence structure, then our sentence would not be grammatical. So this is very necessary to follow this kind of sentence structure to transform the sentence into negative. Let's take an example. She is not playing the football. She is not playing the football. So how we have made the sentence? She, just forget not, she is playing the football. This is the positive sentence. When we need to transform it to negative, how we are going to arrange the sentence? The subject, then auxiliary, then we add negation, that is not, then main verb, playing, then the object. So this is how simply we are going to change the simple sentence into the negative sentence. So some auxiliary verbs are in English language are to be, the form of to be verb auxiliary is am, are, was, were, be, been, and being. To have is has, have, had, and the modal verbs are can, could, shall, should, must, may, might, will, would. So you must be aware with these auxiliaries. These are the general auxiliaries. You can find more from the internet as well. So now we are going to study that how according to the tense we changed the simple sentences to the negative ones. So the tense, then we have the negative element plus contracted forms. Like we have contracted forms, sometimes we contract the not not into a contracted form, that is we add n apostrophe and the t. Like do not, we change do not to don't. We change does not to doesn't. So here is the negative elements plus as the contracted form. When in present simple the structure remains the same. What is the structure? The subject, then the auxiliary, then the negation, and then the main verb. If there is no auxiliary, there is no object, then what comes? The subject, then the negation, and then the verb. Present simple, we have do not, contracted form, that is don't, does not, contracted form, that is doesn't, I do not play, she doesn't play. Or I can say I don't play. Past simple did not, or we can say didn't. I didn't play or I did not play. Present progressive or present continuous, am not, is. So we make isn't by combination of is and not, but we cannot make amn't by the combination of am and not. There is no contracted form of am plus not. So I am not playing, he is not playing, or we can say he isn't playing. Are not playing, or we can say aren't playing. Past progressive, was not or wasn't, were not or we can say weren't. So these are the examples you can study. In present perfect you can see have not, haven't. In present perfect progressive, have not plus been, haven't. I have not been playing. So in past perfect, had plus not, you had not played. Past perfect progressive, future simple, then future perfect. Then when we have conditionals, would not, when we have the conditionals with would, she wouldn't play or she would not play. Conditional perfect, would not have, she would not have played. Then we have modals. When we have modal verb, I can't play, I cannot play, we shouldn't play. So you can study these by yourself in details and try to learn, try to grasp the changes into the negative form by tense wise. So some single negative words other than not are no, none. It's not only we use not as a negative word in order to make the negative sentence. There are many other words that are no, none, nobody, nothing, neither, now, here, and never. These are some other single words that are used instead of not. Like, he never listens to me. The sentence is in the negative form. They had no idea what was their present. Nobody came to visit me while I was in hospital. I have nowhere else to go. I am not interested in getting a job abroad. Neither of the children seemed concerned about the flight. None of us won a ticket to Rihanna's concert. So you see that besides not, we have also some single negative words to use in order to make the negative transformation of a sentence. But remember one thing, that in a sentence or in a same clause, do not use two negative words together, that we called in the English grammar as double negatives. The store doesn't accept no credit cards. We cannot, does not is also a negation. Not and no are two negative words. We are not supposed to use them in a sentence together. Janet wouldn't do nothing. Nobody here wants no trouble. So simply we need to write nobody here wants trouble. There is no need to add no. There is no need to add a double negative. I don't never go there. We just simply either we write I do not go there or I don't go there, or either we need to write I never go there. There is no need of double negatives. So avoid double negatives in the same sentence. The sentence becomes grammatically wrong. There are some other words which are used instead of not, or the single negative words which we have just studied, that is barely, hardly, scarcely, with another negative word. So do not use another negative word with these words as well, because these words barely, hardly, and scarcely also means the same, that is the negative one. Do not use barely, hardly, or scarcely with another negative word. Like examples, barely, she did not barely understand the instructions. Simply what we need to write is either she did not understand the instructions or either we need to write she barely understand the instructions. There is no need to add the two double negatives, that is barely also means negative and not also is a negative. Hardly, I hardly have no money. Either we need to write I have no money or we need to write I hardly have money. Scarcely. The news of the company's bankruptcy made scarcely no impact. So there is no need to add scarcely plus no. Made scarcely impact or made no impact. Double negative, so you can see you can read these sentences and you can also see the correct one as well. So you need to avoid the double negatives together, that you are not allowed grammatically in a grammatical sentence to add the two negatives in a same sentence. Like he didn't scarcely have time to dress. He scarcely had time to dress. Barely, what is barely used for? Used to say that someone or something only has a specified small size, age or length. Used to say that something reached a specified condition or happened only a short time before. We barely spoke the entire time we were in the car. So this is the usage of the word barely. Now hardly, when we use the word hardly, when almost not at all, almost not, used to say that something reached a specified condition or happened only a short time before. I can hardly believe it. Like almost not. He could hardly speak. Like almost not. When we use scarcely, almost not at all, by only a small amount of time or space, or certainly not. He could scarcely control his joy. Means almost certainly not. So this is scarcely a time to love. So a small amount of time. I could scarcely tell them they were wrong. So this is all about today's lecture. What we have studied that what is the passive transformation of a sentence and what is the negative transformation of a sentence. So these are some references. You can take a guide from these as well, or you can get your search from the Google as well to get the more idea about the passive transformation and the negative transformation in syntax or in English grammar. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.